Well, good afternoon, everyone, or still good morning, almost afternoon. This is your average Jen coming at you from my room. We're about to have a big old storm, so I figure why not finish getting content transferred over and doing some podcast stuff today? Why not? So, today, right now, is going to be Bible Journey, part 10. And I don't remember what's going on in this story. I'm almost out of content to transfer over at this point, so I am going to have to start reading my Bible and getting stuff transferred over, like my opinions and things like that. So let me bring this up and we'll get to it. You going to play?
That you may not like me or what I.
There we go.
Hi there, and welcome to I'm Only Human, a podcast that attempts to explain how to coexist with other humans. This podcast is going to dive into topics like: is it possible to overcome human nature? Are rules and laws necessary for taming bad behaviors, or are they simply a control mechanism crafted by other disturbed minds? Why do we fight with each other? How does traditional religion impact us? Can social disease be healed through individual recovery? My name is Jen, and I'm an average human. Before I begin, I would like to state that I will be talking about controversial things such as, but not limited to, religion, God, the Bible, 12 step programs, and politics. I am not an expert, and I don't claim to be one. I will, however, be referencing 12 step programs. I will also be quoting things from the Bible and mentioning God along with different religions. I am not trying to promote a particular program, nor am I trying to convert anyone. I believe religion gives us a foundation, and 12 step recovery guides people down a path to self actualization. Through recovery, healing is possible. I believe that changed minds and attitudes can change our world. And it's been a while since I've visited the Bible. Holy smokes, things got intense last time. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. I'm just in a weird mood. I've been transferring my podcast over to YouTube, and it's given me a little more confidence. And I kind of realized I kind of like listening to the podcast while on YouTube, so I can respond to stuff right away. So, voila, surprise, it's another Spotify episode. So lucky you guys. All right, so what's going on here? Jacob's sons had tricked Shechem, his father Hamor, and all their men into getting circumcised. Then they swooped in and killed all the men while they were still sore from the circumcision. This was in retaliation to avenge their sister Dinah, who was raped by Shechem, and then he had the nerve to ask to marry her. So the men are all dead now, and the women and children have now been claimed or freed, however you want to look at it, by Jacob's sons. So I don't know if these people get a choice or if they're simply now forced to become part of Jacob's tribe. Well, it's time to find out what will happen now. Genesis 35, verse 1 to 14. Then God said to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there, and build an altar there to God who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau." So Jacob said to his household and all who were with him, "Get rid of all the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves, and change your clothes. Then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all their foreign gods they had and the rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell on the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar. He called the place El Bethel because it was there that God revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Now, Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under the oak outside Bethel. So it was named Alan Bakuth. After Jacob returned from Padan Aram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. The nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will be among your descendants. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." Then God went up from him at the place where he had talked with him. Jacob set up a stone pillar at the place where God had talked with him, and he poured out a drink offering on it. He also poured oil on it. Jacob called the place where God had talked with him Bethel. All right, moving on a little more now to Genesis 35, verse 16 to 27. This is Pharaoh paraphrased a bit. Pardon me. Pardon me. me. Okay. Rachel gave birth to another son while en route to Epirath. She had a hard time with the birth and she died. She named that son Ben-Ani, but then Jacob named him Benjamin. Rachel was buried on the way to Bethlehem, which was known as Epirath at that time. Don't forget that Jacob was now named Israel by God, so things might get confusing. They all moved on after burying Rachel. Israel found out that his son Reuben had slept with his, meaning Jacob/Israel's concubine, Bilhah. This got a brief mention, so it might be important later. I don't know. Just to reiterate the family line, simplified, but it only tells of the sons and not the daughters. Jacob/Israel had a total of 12 sons. Leah, the older sister of Rachel, gave birth to Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Rachel, the one Jacob wanted to marry first, gave birth to Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Rachel's servant, Bela, were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Leah's servant, Zilpah, were Gad and Asher. All these children were born while in Padan Aram. At the end of this section of the story, Jacob came home to find his father Isaac in Mamre near Kiriath Arabah, where Abraham and Isaac had stayed. Isaac lived to be 180 years old. Jacob and his brother Esau ended up burying him. If we remember, Isaac was the son of Sarah and Abraham. Sarah gave birth to Isaac when she was 90 years old. Isaac has a half brother named Ishmael, who was the son of Hagar, the servant of Sarah, then known as Sarai. Abram/Abraham was the son of Shem. Shem was one of Noah's 3 sons. Okay, looks like we're moving on to Esau now and his descendants. Remember, Esau is the twin of Jacob/Israel. So Genesis verse 36, 1 to 29, this is summed up. Esau gave his parents grief with the women he chose to marry. I remember when Ishmael was born, God said he was destined to be a donkey of a man. Esau took wives from the women of Canaan. If we remember back to Noah and sons, Canaan was the one that was cursed, and people from Canaan were, quote unquote, the enemy. Esau was a rebel, and his parents didn't like that he married Canaanite women. Ada, who was the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, who was the daughter of Anna and granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite. Esau's third wife was the daughter of Ishmael. Her name was Basmath. Esau had to take his clan and move away from his brother Jacob because the land could not sustain the two of them. They had a lot of flocks, possessions, and people between them. So Esau went and settled in the hill country of Seir. Esau is the father of the Edomites in the hill country of Seir. I'm not going to get into the genealogy here. Sorry about that. But feel free to look it up. It's Genesis 36, verse 1 to 40. I just couldn't do it. I tried and I just had a block there, so we're just gonna move on. All right, I think it's time to get on with some more stories about things. The next superstar in the book is going to be Joseph, the first son of Rachel and Jacob. Um, so let me grab my handy dandy Bible here and look up Genesis 37. Genesis 37. All right, here we go. Genesis 37, verse 1 to 11. Okay, so here we go. Genesis 37, verse 1 to 11. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Ziplah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Okay, so Joseph is a 17-year-old kid that's favored by his father. Oh, that was the end of the verse. Sorry. Anyway, Joseph is a 17-year-old kid that is favored by his father and hated by all his other siblings. So Israel made the ornate robe for Joseph too. I'm sure that I'd be irritated if I were one of the older siblings. But then he told of his dream to him, which made it sound like he was bragging to his brothers about being way better than they were. And then he went over the top and told them that the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him. If you're a human, you've experienced jealousy before. When that feeling festers for a while, what sort of things does your mind think of? Do you find ways to get revenge because you're jealous of another person? Do you find ways to sabotage someone you're jealous of? Joseph's brothers had a plan. So let's see what that was in Genesis verse 37, verse 12 to 36. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to him, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man answered. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him in one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him, Reuben. But don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty, there was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh. They were out on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. Oh, that was a lot of reading. Yeah, I didn't see that coming, did you? It was a mean thing to do. Now Israel is heartbroken and but I'm getting excited to hear more about what happens. Anyway, this is a good place to leave off for the day. My throat's getting a little dry. So join me again next time and maybe we'll find out what happens or maybe they'll drag it on. I have no idea. Bye-bye. In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly of my own making or by my guests. Take what you like and leave the rest. You may come to realize that you may not like me or what I want to share. Let's talk to each other, reason things out, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Instead, let the fellowship of ethical human behavior and the serenity from positive human interaction help you grow and chill out, one experience at a time. I would like to thank my higher power for guiding me through this podcast. I hope to spread the message of love, hope, and understanding by touching one life at a time. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, and share it. Comments may help other struggling people find it. If you would like to share feedback, you can email me at averagehumanbeing1875@gmail.com. If you would like me to read your email on the air, please let me know. There is also a link you can click if you would like to send a voice message and add to the content of the show.
Okay, for those of you that have been following my show, I realized that I used the wrong intro and the wrong closing because I have different things for each of my strains. I guess I could call it strains of podcast. I just like to have, sorry, I'm doing other stuff. I'm distracted here. Stop sharing. There we go. Okay. Yep. I just like to have different intros and stuff like that just to make each story arc a little bit unique. And I must have been in a hurry. And I don't like those intros and exits anyway because I recorded them when I had a cold. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work doing a podcast and doing all the editing and stuff all by yourself. But it gives me something to do and I can share a message. Speaking of sharing messages, since I've been on this Jamie Winship kick and I've been listening to a lot of all of his stuff again lately, my whole perspective on the Bible has now shifted again. In this Bible journey that I started through listening to Jamie, I learned the Bible is kind of like not really a footprint, but like a blueprint for life, so to speak. Because throughout the Bible, there's nothing but like conflict and things like this. And there's a few chosen people, but those, sorry, I have a cat bothering my feet. But those few chosen people, actually, it isn't even, it's just people, random people God picks and talks to and changes their life. And in turn, these people turn around and they can change the lives of many other people. So I want to continue with that thought, but I have a cat rubbing against me and I'm afraid he's going to bite me because he wants the chair. So I'm going to cut this episode here. All right, have a great day. I'll finish these thoughts. I know I will throughout like more episodes and stuff like that. Bye-bye.